Okay, my mother, Flossie Lee Turner Linderman, was born to Sue F., maybe Flossie, Crouch Turner, and Andrew Jackson Turner. Andrew Jackson had been previously married. He had a son named Douglas, and his wife had died. He had become an itinerant carpenter, and we don't know exactly from where, but he was hired to rehab the old Crouch farm that had belonged to Grandmother Sue's mother. Now, the person who still lived on that farm was Uncle Will. He had never married. He said he had a hernia that impeded his abilities as a man, and it would be unfair to any woman to marry her. And so he had stayed home and taken care of Mom. And he never married, and he lived to be 85. However, Sue was still living there too, and I don't know about Molly. I know that Ellen and Bolin and Tom had all married and gone away, and Sue was considered a spinster because she was past 30 years old. But anyway, AJ saw her. She was a tiny little woman, they say 4'7", very cute, and he was not a very tall man, and he thought she was wonderful, and he courted her and ultimately married her. Now, I don't know much of the details, but we do know that Sue gave birth to a child, a girl, who was named Mary, and that she apparently lived only about 3 weeks. 2 years later, in October 1902, she gave birth to Flossie, who was my mother. Now, we're not sure, but apparently the Crouch family had given her the poster bed that Sue now owns and that I redid years ago to take with her as part of her dowry. And she didn't like it that way because it had too high a post and she couldn't dust it. So she took a saw, a standard old handsaw, and sawed those solid walnut posts off. They're about this big, and you can feel one of them she didn't get an even job on. The rest of them are very well done. Anyway, when Mother was born, she was born in that bed, so the story goes.
In what town? In what town?
I'm about to say.
Okay.
She was born in Hinkleville, Kentucky, which is about 3 or 4 miles from the Crouch farm. According to Uncle Will and Mama, she was born in a little house that stood on the hill down from Mom, Grandma, and Dad's house, and it was on the farm that they owned. Now, we don't know why and we don't know when, but we have a lot of pictures that were made in Arkansas. So my guess, and this is purely a guess and a speculation, is that AJ was a very good carpenter, and he had gotten hired to take care of houses or do something to houses in Arkansas, and so they had moved there. Sue has a table that AJ built, so he was apparently quite a talented carpenter, and this would have been sometime around the turn of the century. My grandmother and my grandfather both died, records say around 1906. Mother's story was that her mother died when she was 2 and her dad when she was 4, but we don't know for sure. But we know they both died, and that Aunt Ellen, her mother's older sister, who had no children of her own, took her to raise. She was married to a man by the name of William Ray, W-R-A-Y, who was a pharmacist in Blandville, Kentucky. And lo and behold, he died. And so that left Mother at something around 6 or 7 years old, having lost basically 3 parents in her young life. And when they asked her what she was going to do, she said, well, we'll go home and live with Uncle Will. And that's what they did. Ellen Ray, Flossie Turner, and Will Crouch.